someone like him was crucial at that point. I mean, the war had just finished.
Right.
The product, 1955, I think, was the first rice cooker. So, how did he overcome that, that resistance to Japanese products in the local Hong Kong market?
Japanese products in 1950s had such a bad reputation. Things that last for 1.5 days, rice with things Japanese. I'm not going to even try to pronounce it. My Cantonese is horrible, so I'm not going to say that. But things Japanese basically rhymes with things that last for only 1.5 day and break. And so those days. And also, what was another thing, Dixon? Like Japanese ships will eventually sink. Yeah. Japanese ships will eventually ultimately sink. And so people had memories of Japanese very bad products like flashlights and things from the 1940s, and that lingered on. And of course, there's this massive anti-Japanese sentiment in the 1950s because when William Moon started taking his bulb radio, it's not even transistor radio, but the original, bulb type radio. When he started taking things that are around, shopkeepers basically told him that, did you forget who killed our people? And, the blood is not even dry. And he had to face that kind of adversity. But he basically thought that by creating the kind of products that Chinese people need, rather than just importing things that are popular in Japan, would eventually create a market. And this is one of the examples from 1961.
The other thing that he was able to mobilize for National Panasonic's benefit was the incredible links into the overseas Chinese community all around the world. So the stories about Indonesia, I think, people find really interesting.
Yeah. Well, Hong Kong was acting as a gateway to a lot of Asian communities. We often talk about Hong Kong being free port, and it is a free port. But when we say Hong Kong is a free port, we have to remember that all surrounding countries, many of the surrounding countries were in turmoil. Many of the surrounding countries were taking protectionist policies in terms of importing things. So by selling things to Hong Kong, things eventually, informally, ended up in other nations. It's not necessarily a strategy, but with the Chinese network, the things, radios, and also rice cookers, and many other things, smaller things basically, ended up in many other countries. And that also is true with mainland China in 1979.
One of the classic examples of the closeness between and the trust that developed between William Wong and the Panasonic team was that they had set up a factory for radios in Indonesia, and couldn't sell them because the factory was owned by an Indonesian and all the retail outlets were owned by overseas Chinese, and so there was this cultural divide within Indonesia. So William Wong came in and
they shipped the Indonesian-made National Panasonic radio to Hong Kong, shipped them back to Indonesia from Hong Kong, and sold them through Chinese network.
I mean, this guy he really thought of a solution. He saw a problem, he thought of a solution. The logistics innovation that he made about pay in Hong Kong,
picked up in China.
This is incredible.
Well, there are many of you who've experienced this yourself and carried things yourself to China. So I'm not, I feel funny telling you this story, but in 1979, when China opened up, basically in January, starting January of 1979, the Chinese government said that now you can take one home appliance with you when you visit your family members in China. One. But what a lot of people did was that they carried like a refrigerator, they carried a washing machine, many people carried a rice cooker, but they also carried the most popular item by far was a television set. People were carrying television sets on what we used to call KCL, the line between Wuhan to going all the way to crossing the border to China. But at that time, William Moon and his team basically saw people carrying this huge be very big box of black and white television, sometimes color television. They said, how about if you could stay in Hong Kong and pick it up on Guangzhou? So they carried this television set to Guangzhou, and people just carry one coupon and then could cross the border, and that was the innovation in 1979.
He really thought hard, and the way he discovered that, or came up with that idea, was by standing on the station at Hong Kong and watching people struggle with their luggage. And he thought, this is a problem, I can solve it. You know, it's just that sort of guy.
But also, it's also a story of transnationalism. We often talk about transnationalism today, and it's such a big thing in academia to talk about transnational this and transnational that. But he was, at that time in 1979, thinking really transnationally. Because for a lot of national Panasonic people, selling things in Hong Kong, to Hong Kong, and then that being picked up in China was a problem. Because it kind of, for some people, it felt like it violated the idea of, rights and obligations. I mean, to him was the organization, right? And he was basically an agent for Hong Kong and Macau. So some people thought that was problematic. But for him, he was thinking of very natural flow of people from Hong Kong to China, which is a very natural thing to do.
I think we're sort of going to run out of time here, but one of the things that is another thing that's really fascinating about this book is the role of women, because this appliance is used by women and was predominantly used by women, and yet the pictures that you've got in the book's got wonderful illustrations and photographs of the factories and sort of thing, and the people that are sitting around trying to devise these rice cookers, it's all these men in suits or men in white coats, and they're trying to work out how to make the best rice. But there was a transformation in 1979, wasn't it? Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, in 1979, National Panasonic began to hire what they call rice ladies by accident. They basically, what happened was, up until 1979, like rice cooker first was invented by Toshiba, not National Panasonic, sorry, but in 1955, automatic rice cookers. And then up until 1979, basically, at National Panasonic, people who were working on the technology of rice cookers were all men. And we said, they were all in suits, they were all trying out this machine, and then they were basically relying on their own taste to see if the rice cooker is cooking right or not. But in 1979, they began to hire women, and they called them later rice ladies. These rice ladies, when you come to think of it, it's a little interesting, because you think that it's going to be women who are going to rely on their senses, and it's going to be men who is going to be scientific, but it was these women who brought science into rice cooker making. These women basically carried out all kinds of experiments, mashing, steamed rice, and then looking at the texture, and then, basically looking at how soft and how hard mechanically to find out whether it's cooking the perfect rice or not. And these are the women from Osanomizu Women's University who are specifically trained to do carbohydrates.
They were engineers who who took on and transformed, took rice to another whole level. And some of the other innovations that they made, that the women made, were things like putting a handle on it so it could be carried, because they knew how it was used in the kitchen. They made it look nicer so that you didn't just have white. You had, now you've got space age, so the space age generation of women.
But 1971 rice cooker looks kind of round and cute and white and red and Hello Kitty-ish.
Yeah, and that sold. That was a whole car. Yeah. So they brought science in, but they also brought beauty into the rice cooker domain. And there were also rice ladies internationally, weren't they?
Yes. Right now, there are a couple of rice ladies in outside of Bangkok, and these are Thai ladies who are working on the latest models of rice cookers for people who are outside of Japan, Southeast Asia. In the year 2002, they came up with this idea of how about if we can bake bake cakes?